no appearance, your worship, as they say. That was a story on Spring Street on Tuesday night, when your hard-working pollies couldn't even rustle up the numbers for Parliament to sit, and so for the first time in 25 years, a sitting had to be abandoned. All they needed was 20 out of 88 elected members, and they couldn't rustle up that, despite the fact that your elected officials on a minimum wage of $125,000 a year, plus perks and allowances, they only sit about 17 weeks a year out of 52. On Tuesday night, there were 16 Labor MPs there, 2 Libs and 1 Independent. There were more people on the steps of Parliament House yesterday protesting against the Brumby government than had turned up the night before. Now, in fairness, but although it's a pretty slim excuse, the government claims that the Libs deliberately created the embarrassing situation, having one of their members hide in the corridor. But Heidi Victoria claims that's not so. She says she was in her office, and anyway, it wasn't her responsibility. Now, it does sound like a bad episode of Yes, Minister. Had the Shadow Minister of Police and Emergency Services. He's the manager of opposition business in the House on the line now. Andrew McIntosh, good afternoon.
G'day, Derryn.
Was it a stunt?
Well, it wasn't a stunt. I mean, I disagree with the fact that it's unprecedented. Quorums are called all the time. It is a fundamental obligation of the government party to ensure that there are actually 20 members sitting in the chamber while the House is actually sitting. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't other members working in their offices or otherwise. But can I also just say that the opposition, of course, doesn't have sufficient numbers to control any aspect of the House.
True.
Now, of course, and Peter Batchelor is quite right. The adjournment vote is a very important part of the parliamentary process. It's a time when individual members can raise matters relating to their own constituencies, or certainly in my case, matters of profound concern relating to police and emergency service, and God knows there's a lot of those I can raise, but certainly these things, it's an important part of the parliamentary process. And indeed, Mr Batchelor was indeed responding to a query about a sports grant from the member of Cranbourne, but of course what he then devolved into was an interchange between himself and the Minister for Gaming sitting at the table about a football game that occurred on Monday. It had nothing to do with the question, it had nothing to do with the business of the House.
Well, now, technically, you've got to have, for a quorum, there's got to be 20 people there out of the 88. Now, technically, could the opposition not be there? Does it have to be 20 people, including some opposition, or could the government have 20 Labor people and nobody else?
Well, you've got to remember, during the adjournment debate, the Labor government changed the rules that there can be no divisions during an adjournment debate. So there's no need to maintain the numbers in the House. Now, of course...
But you have to have somebody occupying the opposition leader's seat.
Absolutely. I was there, and certainly I had not spoken on the adjournment debate at that time. I was doing my duty. There's always at least a minister and a shadow minister sitting at the table. The Liberal Party whip, Nick Kotsiris, was sitting with me. Now, all of the other members in the Liberal Party who had spoken on the adjournment debate had their matters either dealt with or referred off by the relevant minister for later consideration. Now, once that occurs, they are no longer required to remain in the chamber, and effectively, many members take the opportunity of leaving the precincts of the Parliament at this stage. It would have been around about 10:15 when the adjournment started. But I think the most important thing...
Did you have somebody... Is it true that Heidi Victoria was waved away and told to embarrass them?
Well, I must admit I have spoken to Heidi about this. Now, Heidi was sitting in her office working on her parliamentary obligations in her office. The bells went. She was aware that a quorum had been called. She was certainly aware that it is the principal obligation of the government to make...
Okay, but did she start to come in and did somebody wave her away?
No, I certainly didn't wave her. I have no recollection of ever seeing her in the precincts of the chamber. In fact, there's a rule that says if you come into the chamber, you must stay in the chamber. Interestingly enough, I do recall that a member sought to leave from the National Party, and he was actually called back by the Speaker because the rule is that if you're in the chamber, you cannot leave the chamber. So certainly I saw no waving of any other member away from the chamber.
All right, put me out of misery. In 1984, was that a Liberal government? Was it Lindsay Thompson Premier?
1984, I think it was a Labor government.
Oh, Peter Batchelor couldn't remember. It's been so long this time.
I think Lindsay Lindsay Thompson lost in 1982.
82, that you're right, yes. Hamer retired, then Lindsay came in and Lindsay lost.
Yeah, indeed.
All right, thanks for that.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye. Andy McIntosh, the Manager of Opposition Business in the State Parliament. I'll take some of your calls on this. I mean,